Hi everyone, this is Greg, and welcome back to The Seed, the Startup Journey, a podcast sharing the origin stories of amazing entrepreneurs and their companies in short, less than 20-minute episodes. Today, I'll be interviewing the founder of HoopsNation, Buster Scher. Buster started blogging about fantasy basketball at the age of 14, and at only 20, he is now doing his dream job, working with the NBA by posting memes and highlights daily on HoopsNation, a brand with 660,000 followers on Facebook, 1 million on Instagram, and 4 million on TikTok. Hey Buster, to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well as Hoops Nation?
Yeah, so a little context on myself. I grew up in New York, moved to Connecticut halfway through high school, started broadcasting. After a couple of years of doing that and a couple of years of blogging about fantasy basketball on Facebook, I decided to broaden it out. And that's how Hoops Nation came to be, and started that originally on Facebook, then brought it out to the other platforms, Snapchat, Twitter, then Instagram, then TikTok, and now have a full team who manages everything on that front, and love them to death, and love being still super involved in the basketball community.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit more about your beginning because, as you mentioned, you started blogging about fantasy basketball at around 14, I think. Did you know back then that you're one day going to be working with the NBA and have millions of followers online?
I never did. And I don't think that was really ever the goal either. I just enjoyed doing it. And that's kind of why I started. And, I'm a very big believer in, if I don't enjoy doing something, I'm just going to stop doing it immediately and figure out what I do enjoy. But fortunately, for the longest time, I loved just posting on, the Hoops Nation, and on before that, the All NBA, and before that, fantasy basketball stuff. But yeah, the goal I don't think was ever to have millions of followers. I remember when I was starting, like, oh, it would be great to have a million followers, but that was never what drove me or, what excited me.
And I also want to talk a little bit about your decision to not go to college, because I know that you have dyslexia and ADHD, and you got by high school reading like zero books at all. Yeah, like what pushed you to not attend college? Like, is that because of that or because of your Hoops Nation and all your business going on?
I think it was a combination of things. And I wouldn't recommend to high school students not to read anything. I would actually recommend the opposite. But, I think that for me, with what I had going on and how much I really wasn't a school person, like it didn't excite me. I wasn't learning about the things that were really driving my passion. And if I were to go to college and learn those things, why wouldn't I just go and work with the NBA if I'm in the position to do so, and work with the guys that, college will teach you about possibly working with and put you in a position to work with. And at that point, I'll be 4 years older, and that's 4 years of lost productivity. So for me, that was how that worked out in my head.
Mm-hmm. And was it hard, like making that decision and then confronting, your friends or your parents about that?
No, I never really. My parents were on board, thankfully. They're the best. And my friends, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Gotcha. And what has been like the most challenging moment for you so far in starting your own business?
I think really what it comes down to is, and it has nothing to do with the business, because if you're doing what you love, everything, problems, success, it all blends together, and it is what it is. But I think, as an entrepreneur, making sure that you're on point, no matter what happens outside of business, no matter what happens outside of any of that kind of stuff, that you stay locked in, and you don't care about anything else. I think that's the most valuable skill that I think I've developed because of entrepreneurship and needing to be on point. You look at all the greats, whether it be in basketball or whatever, and it's that mental muscle that is the most valuable.
And do you think it's passion that's driving you to, stay on track and stay motivated?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll notice it all the time. If there's something, it doesn't matter how much somebody's paying me, if I don't enjoy it, and that's why I just won't. I'll say no. I won't do it if I don't. I literally don't say yes to barely anything that I don't think I would enjoy. So it's really as simple as that for me, you know.
Gotcha. And kind of on the flip side, what has been the best or most satisfying moment for you so far?
That's a great question. I think just creating this level of freedom. You know, right now I'm spending a month in a different city each month. So like I just spent a month in LA. I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I'm gonna go to LA and then Miami right after next week. And I think just creating that freedom to be able to do what I want when I want for no reason, um, that is probably the best thing that all of this has created. And the cool thing about it is that's not a moment, that's continuous, which is beautiful.
That's awesome. And the amount of followers you have across social media, like it's crazy to me. Like you have 1 million followers on Instagram and 4 million on TikTok for your Hoops Nation pages. And what's more interesting to me, however, is the number of posts you put out every single day. Like I noticed you post almost once every hour. Like, is that your secret to gaining so much audience, like by posting so much and consistently?
Yeah, that was definitely my secret at the beginning. And that's like I know we connected on LinkedIn, and that's what I'm doing there right now. I'm posting as much as I can because my audience is small. But if as your audience gets bigger, you can't keep that same level up. Although I try and I suggest to my guys who run the Instagram and TikTok, just put as much out there as possible. But it's different once you already have a built up base. But at the beginning, you just want to post as much as you can. Yeah, I think that is a secret. The more content you put out, as long as it's all good and you think it's good and you're happy with the production of it, I think that really does wonders in terms of helping you grow.
So should we like not feel spammy about it, like posting so many different pieces of content throughout the day?
Not if it's good. You should only feel spammy if it's spam.
For sure. So where would you say you are now along your startup journey? Like many people would say you have your dream job right now, working around your passion, but are you personally satisfied with where you are right now?
Oh no, not at all. I have my dream job from when I was 13, but I don't have my dream job now. If that makes any sense. Like my dream job now is to be able to have an audience big enough as to where I can, help, millions or more people just by saying something. Similar to how some people have with a podcast. And then off of that, they can have involvement with companies and push those on the podcast. Like I don't want to, having advertisers is great, but it's much cooler to advertise your own stuff. So I want to get to a point where I'm only advertising my own stuff. That will be the dream.
And I also saw you're starting to, really build up your personal account as well, besides Hoops Nation. So is that like kind of what you're trying to establish, like really bringing your own personal brand out there?
Yeah. And I say this all the time too, for anybody listening as well, there's never a downside in building your personal brand. There is nothing negative that can ever come from that. And only good things will come into your life as you build your personal brand and care more and more about that. So I really recommend it to everybody. I can't say it enough. That it doesn't matter what you do. You could work at, a diner as a waitress. It doesn't matter. Build your personal brand because good things come from it.
And I also want to talk a little bit more about like having a brand and like networking with people, because for me, when I started the podcast, I didn't really know a lot of entrepreneurs. So I didn't really know who to reach out to and like how to find my guests, basically. So what would you recommend to someone who's just starting to build out their own network and to potentially find, bigger guests or such as like, Gary Vee or like all these super influential people that people looked up to?
I wouldn't focus on the guests, man. Honestly, I would create a place that they want to come to. Like what's the value exchange? Like what are they getting out of coming on the podcast? Are they, gaining 1 million followers? Are they getting really cool original content that's like really well edited and you're providing their team with right after? Are they meeting their childhood hero. What's the value exchange? And that's why oftentimes, even still, if the value, if I'm not helping the other person at least as much as they're helping me, then I usually won't even ask.
And like I personally struggle with providing value, at least like justifying it, because my podcast doesn't really have a large audience. And so when I go and ask some of my guests to be on my podcast, like right now, the only reason for them to really be helping me is for them to share their story with people. Is that the way that I should be looking in terms of justifying my value?
No, because I think that's like you're looking at it from them like they're doing you a favor. And I don't favor isn't there's nothing wrong with any of that, but I would think about like what is the unique thing that you can do that other people can't, and usually it just comes from putting in the work. So it's like you should provide each guest with like a really cool video of them talking that they can post. Like that's very real value that you don't need any audience for. It's just something that nobody's willing to put in the work for. Like if you hit me with a really good video that I can post on TikTok and Instagram afterwards, fully edited, good to go, I would be really excited. And I think other people would be too. So little things like that is how I look at that.
Gotcha. And do you have any advice for, someone like me who is still a student, but I'm really interested in entrepreneurship and wants to potentially start something of my own in the future as well?
Man, honestly, I would just start. That's the best way to figure out if you like something or not, if you're good at something or not, getting better at something that you're not, anything like that. The best way to do it is to start. I'm a big believer in just starting a business. Doesn't matter what it is, and see how it goes. If you lose money, great. You learned a very valuable lesson. Honestly, I'd rather most people lose money trying to start a business than spending it on a class that they're not going to be able to use when they're in the real world. So, I start.
Gotcha. And I also want to talk a little bit about sports cards because I hear Gary Vee talk about that all the time. And I know you're also super into it. And I was talking to my friend the other day and he was like, I don't get it. Why are people buying sports cards? So what would you say to my friend?
The best way I can describe it is look at sports cards like a stock market for players. Depending on how LeBron plays, if LeBron wins, his value goes up. If he loses, it goes down. And then you could have a kid who has never scored a point in his life. His cards cost $1, and then he goes out and scores 20. Now his cards are worth $30 each. Somebody who had 100 of them just made a lot of money. So it's like being able to speculate like you can on stocks, but on actual players who are fun to watch on TV. And I really think it's a better alternative to sports gambling, because in sports gambling, you either make money or you lose all of it. Sports cards, you either make a little bit of money or you lose a little bit of money. You don't lose all. It's not an all or nothing, some game like sports gambling for the most part is. So I think that's the best way I can describe it. And it's physical items. It's a collectible. They look cool. They're fun, and you can trade. And I love it.
So what is your thought on sports cards, but digital and blockchain? Like, I don't know if you heard of NBA Top Shot.
Yeah, I have. I don't know, man. The whole point of it is that it's collectible, like it's in your hand. And that's why I think anything that doesn't do that, it loses so much of the fun. And also when you're talking about digital assets, it's just, there's no difference between digital assets and imaginary to me. Even like Bitcoin, it's all imaginary. It could all poof, but I love it. But, I guess Bitcoin isn't a good example because that's money and you can transfer that. But something like 1 of 10 card in digital form, it's just so far removed from a real 1 of 10 gold card that you're looking at in front of you, and everybody goes, ooh, when they see it.
Gotcha. And so before we end, I also prepared some rapid fire questions.
We'll do it.
So the first one is, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Great question. Teleportation for sure.
And what time do you usually wake up every morning?
On a good day, before 7. Yeah, before 7 on a good day. Today, 9.
Yeah. What's one thing you can't live without?
My phone or my watch. Yeah, one of the two. I wear an Apple Watch that tracks like my calories and running and stuff. It's the only reason I use it.
And which basketball player do you have the most respect for?
LeBron. LeBron. Yeah. Going through what he went through and being the man who he is today with the flawless record that he has is very impressive. A lot of respect for that.
And this is the last question, which is, what is the best advice you ever received?
Not to care what other people think and not to worry about anybody else. I think I've gotten that advice many times. I've said it many times, but it's really true. The success comes when you don't worry about anybody else, no matter who it is, whether it be friends, family, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. When you don't worry about other people, that's when the good starts coming.
I want to kind of follow up on that. Like, does that mean don't listen to feedback?
Feedback is great, but you
Okay.
have to be able to not let that emotionally affect you beyond how it helps your work.
Gotcha.
And but beyond that, I'm referring more to like the outside noise, like the stuff that has nothing to do with you, that you see on social media or that you see somewhere here or there. Like that's the stuff that I'm mostly referring to. Like don't no free rent in your head. And that's what I think is the most valuable advice that I've ever been given and been able to adapt and try to share with other people because I see how beneficial that is.
Gotcha. Well, that's it for today's interview. Thank you, Buster, for taking the time to do this. And I wish you the best of luck and stay safe.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to see our takeaways from this interview, as well as the latest previews and highlights for our future episodes, make sure you follow us on Instagram. You can also find our episodes on Apple or Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. As always, if there is any question you would like to see asked during our interviews, or if there's a particular industry or company you would like to see, leave a comment below. Finally, make sure you subscribe and share this podcast with your friends so that we can grow our seed of innovation and creativity together. With that, I'll see you next time.